Jamstack 101. Getting started with Next.js and Vercel with Joel Varty.
All right, let's get started. I think one of the most exciting things about this whole thing is that there are so many people from all over the world, which is great. So throw that in the comments. Tell us where you're from. People from Europe, people from Toronto, Los Angeles, Florida. It's great. So yeah, throw that in there. I'm going to keep an eye on those comments as much as I can. And but with that being said, let's get started on this. So we're talking about Next.js today. We're specifically talking about Next.js with the notion of, how do you develop with it, but how do you develop with it with a CMS, especially so that, you can write your code and have someone else work on the content. And I think that's one of the most important things you can do when you're working with CMS these days. Sorry, with any development framework is to plug it into a CMS, which is why I work for Agility CMS. And but also then to get that deployed onto Vercel, which is probably the best spot to host Next.js websites. So one of the things, this slide I always put up on all my decks. So, this is a great opportunity to learn from each other. And I think the best way to learn material is to actually go teach it, which is one of the reasons why I started doing these seminars many moons ago. And I've really enjoyed them. But I think that we get the most out of it when we ask questions, when we interrupt, when we bring new ideas into it. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your ideas. A little bit about me. Of course, my name's Joel Varty. That's what I look like when I'm in a photo. Follow me on Twitter at Joel Varty and reach out. I'm also interested in musical theater, love musical theater. That's me playing Frankenstein. This is me playing somebody else. And this is me at Spamalot. So I enjoy doing that, going on stage, having fun. I really, really miss that from the whole pandemic thing. So I can't wait to get back to musical theater. I also coach football. So there's me on a football field. And I really wish I could get back to that soon too, because here in Canada, we're not playing sports right now. So remember, this is a deep dive. It's not a full course. I'm not going to teach you a university course on how to code. We're going to be looking at Next.js as a technology. And it's kind of like, Luke Skywalker getting his training on Dagobah from Yoda. He didn't have quite enough time to become a full Jedi, but when he got to Cloud City, he was able to face Vader and not get killed. So, he wasn't a full Jedi yet. So continue your training. This is a really cool thing. So we've been doing these videos. We've been doing webinars and teaching folks about Jamstack. And there's this young man from Nigeria who's been taking these videos, learning them stuff himself. And as I say, best way to learn is to go teach it. He's been teaching schools in Nigeria how to code with Vercel, Next.js, Agility CMS. It's pretty great. And these kids are picking it up and learning it. And I think that's just an incredible thing. So go ahead, learn it, teach it, and keep sharing the love. So what are we going to learn today? We're going to get started with so what we've done is we built a Next.js starter package that connects to Agility CMS that gives you all kinds of benefits to basically get going and get a whole bunch of stuff started so you don't have to start from a blank page. We're going to show you how to deploy that to Vercel.com using their deploy button. We're going to get preview going from the CMS. And I think that's a big deal. It's one of those things that's typically really hard to get going when you're sort of setting everything up. We're going to get running with the local development environment, and we're going to write some code. We're going to just tinker around a little bit and see how that works. We're also going to basically look at a little bit of the underpinnings about how Next.js works and what its benefits are. We're going to look at Agility CMS and how the content and pages that you get from a CMS can be basically pushed into Next.js to drive the routing of it and figure out how that works and how Next.js routing in terms actually is supposed to work. And then as a bonus, we're going to take a look at a really exciting framework called Tailwind CSS. So the starter that we're going to be using today actually uses Tailwind CSS and styled components, which I think is a really great sort of, framework on top of a framework to help you get going more quickly and moving things along. And it also actually includes a component library. So if you're kind of newish to React and even, maybe like sort of feeling your way around, this is a great way to learn a whole bunch of different techniques about and use this component library. And if you just want to really build a website and just use a website, you can actually use this starter, and it's a blog site. You can just use it. So let's take a look a little bit before we get started into some code. We're going to look at DevOps 101. So for Jamstack, that's basically, we're going to have a build server. We don't have a web server. We have a build server. We're going to take code. We're going to take content. We're going to combine that in a build server, output static HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. When I talk about Jamstack, this is what I sort of picture in my mind. And it could be any framework that does this. And then, we take that static HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and we put it in some kind of storage and make that available over a CDN. So what's really great is that the combination of Next.js and Vercel do all of that for us, because that's kind of a complex process to get set up. It takes care of all of that for us. So static sites with Next.js and Vercel kind of look like this. So we have our content in our pages. So we've got content coming from a CMS. And I think that's really important to think of, because we don't want to be typing out, as developers, we don't want to be typing out content. We want to be working with code. So we're going to take our content, and any other page data or routing data from a CMS. We can take other data as well from like custom databases we might have. And we're going to basically write React code. So Next.js is built on top of React as a JavaScript framework. And it's going to go through a build process. So Vercel is going to take care of that build process for us. And it's going to get hosted as static HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. So Vercel basically takes care of this entire process for us. We just basically point it at a GitHub library. But wait, there's more. Vercel gives us preview as well. So normally with static sites, it's great. It's going to run awesome because there's no code to run at runtime. There's no web server. But how do we get preview showing so that folks, when they're writing out there's in the CMS, they can, before they actually click publish on something, they want to see what it looks like first. Preview allows you to do that. So it's one of the things that's been really difficult to get working with Jamstack, and Next.js solves that. So there's this serverless function that runs on Vercel that basically gives you the preview version of the code, and we'll show you how that works. But wait, there's even more stuff with Vercel. Vercel has this idea of incremental static rebuilding, which we'll show you how that works as well. So, Jamstack came out and it's been out for quite a while, and amazing because it works so great and new websites are fast. But how do we solve preview? Vercel gives us a way to solve that with Next.js. The next big thing was, what if I have a huge site and I add some content to it, or there's some new data that's available, but I don't want to rebuild all 20,000 pages of my big site or whatever. It might even be only a couple hundred pages. Why should I have to rebuild the whole thing? Well, you don't have to rebuild the whole thing. You can do what's called incremental rebuild. And that also uses a serverless function in the back end that Vercel gives us to work with. So this is just an incredible piece of technology. And it always serves static files. So even though we've got this incremental rebuild happening, it's going to still service static files. So this is just a really great sort of set of technologies that take us to what I call sort of next generation Jamstack. Because Next.js has been around for a while, but it has really evolved very quickly, and especially in the last 12 months, to get really great. So I'm going to switch over to some code and show you some live demos and examples in a second here. But just want to make sure you have all the connections. So at Agility CMS to track the CMS, at Joe Varty's myself on Twitter, and at Vercel. All these folks are really responsive. The other thing you can do is follow along on we have basically an Agility CMS Jamstack Slack channel. I'm going to actually type this into here. Go ahead, join us on that Slack channel, because we really want to connect with developers and hear the experiences and help solve problems and stuff like that. And we've got lots of experience with Jamstack that we want to share. So with that being said, I'm going to stop the boring old PowerPoint, because we're done with PowerPoint, and we're going to do some real stuff. Okay, so close all my embarrassing windows. Here we go. All right, so let's bring over. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to agilitymess.com. And basically, Agility has a free account that we're going to use. And the free account's really generous. It gives you like 2,500 items. You can use it for real stuff. So I'm going to show you how to get started with that free account, so you don't have to pay for anything. And Vercel gives you a lot of free stuff too. So we're going to get all the free stuff working and actually running before we have to write any code. So that's pretty great. So you're just going to come in here. I went to the Agility homepage, clicked on get started for free, and it took me here. So I'm just going to go Joel October 21 Varty. I've signed up for a lot of these, so I try to keep them separate. So you're going to just type in your actual email address. I'm going to learn how to type. Here we go. Okay. Funny thing is, we are actually working on an update to our sign-up platform that will actually circumvent all of this stuff, and it'll just say, hey, connect with GitHub or connect with Twitter, or sorry, connect with Gmail, and it'll just work. But until then, we're not quite there. So there's two starters that we're going to choose from. Today, we're going to be using the Next.js starter blog. If you're interested in Gatsby, you can come back and do another one with a different email for Gatsby. But for today, we're going to go with Next.js, and it's going to give you a pretty full-featured blog that we talked about. So let's go ahead and do that. We need to give it a project name. I'm going to call this Joel. We're 21 or 21B. And we're going to go ahead and it's going to basically do all the work in the background. So if you're trying to follow along, I'm actually going to go pretty fast. So it might be a little too fast to follow along. But you can always just come back and watch this later. I think that's how a lot of people are learning technology these days, is they're starting with a video and it's kind of like, hey, if I need to go back to the video, I'll do that and kind of play pause as I go. So hopefully that works for you. So immediately it took me into the Agility Content Manager, which is, so Agility is a headless CMS that gives us everything in a web app that we can do to sort of manage the content, okay? But it also gives you some stuff down here about frameworks. And since we're using Next.js, I'm just gonna click on Next.js there. And what we've done is put this, the Vercel has this deploy button, deploy to Vercel, that we've got hooked up to this actual code that is matched up with this content. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click this deploy button. It's going to open that in a new tab. And it's basically going to connect with my Vercel account. So I already had a Vercel account, so it kind of skipped a screen here, but it may ask you, say, hey, create your Vercel account, link it to a GitHub, whatever. But this is already preset to join up with this, to basically create a site in your Vercel account based on another starter that we've got going here. So it does a bunch of Git stuff in the background for us, but this is the starter we want. So I'm just going to go past that. I have lots of Vercel setups, but I'm going to use my personal account. It is already connected to GitHub, so that's great. Again, this is not rocket science. It's just a matter of kind of going through here. But now what it's going to do is it's actually going to create a repo in my own Git, in my own GitHub, to basically copy this code over. So it's going to give me that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this Next.js October 21B, because I already did this as a test today. You can call it whatever you want. You can make it a private Git. I'm going to make this public because I'm okay with that. There you go. All right. So gives us this, we have to give it a project name, which I'm going to actually change this to Next.js October 21B. You can call it whatever you want. But we've got these required environment variables. Okay. So right off the top, Next.js is really good about saying, hey, don't put your environment variables in your code, because this basically will give people access to all your data. So this is how we do this, and these are going to be encrypted, so we don't check these in with any code. And we need 4 values from Agility. If you wait until next week, this will all be taken care of for you. Next.js actually, or the Vercel folks, have a version of their deploy button that allows these things to get set automatically from Agility, but not quite there yet. So we've got to do a little bit of work. The good thing is it's all right here. So if I click on, let's make the window a little bit bigger. API keys. I need my GUID, which is right here. I need my fetch API key and my preview API key. So most sort of CMSs have this, the idea of how do I get my live content? How do I get my preview content? So there's my live content. There's my preview content API keys. I copy those. So I'll put the fetch one in the fetch one, and the preview goes in the preview. Now, there's one other thing. So this pulls out our live content. This pulls out our preview content. Because we're in preview mode, what Agility does is it says, okay, I'm only going to let you go into preview mode if you're allowed to. And it uses what's called a security key for that. So this is kind of a pain, but we got to go find that security key, which is in settings, global security, which is a real pain to find. But now it's on a video, so you'll never forget. And next week when this rolls out with a big update, then you won't have to set any of this stuff. It'll just set automatically. But remember where those things are too, because when we run it locally, we're going to have to put these values back in again. So we'll just keep note of those, but it's easy to find. All right, so then I'm going to click deploy. What this is going to do is actually going to create this website in hosted Vercel for me for free. This is normally really difficult to do, right? If you've ever set up web servers and configured things, it's a real pain to get going. This takes care of everything. So it's got the code from GitHub, puts it in your own repo for you. It sets the environment variables, creates the project name, and then sets up all the environment infrastructure that you need inside Vercel. So this takes a second. And it's amazing. All that stuff that's happening in the background, I'm like, man, it's been 20 seconds. Why do I got to keep waiting for this thing? But it goes really fast. So that's going to do that. It's actually going to do the first build for you. So it basically does that. And it's going to go through here. It's going to build everything. And then we can start working with it after that. So we can do two things. We can work with the content. We can update the content and show you how that works. And we can work with the code. So we can pull the code down, clone that GitHub repo that it created, do some changes to it, see how it works, check some code back up into GitHub. And what'll happen is it'll actually rebuild everything in Vercel when we check code in. And yay, we get some confetti that comes down. So we got two things here. One, let's go visit the website because that's awesome. So this is the site that it just created for us. This is the Agility Starter Site 2020. So it does some pretty cool stuff. It's got some nice typography. It's got a blog section. So there's some blog that's here. Getting notifications. That's awesome. And we can click through it and it's all working. So it's pretty cool. We can also open the dashboard to see what this looks like in the Vercel dashboard. Okay, so Vercel gives us like a cloud dashboard for all of our projects. So this one's called Next.js October 21B. Great name. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hook this up to Agility so that I can preview from my CMS. That's a thing that's really important. I think if you're thinking about actually making money from writing code, from writing websites, you're going to want to usually write a website for a client, for a customer. Maybe it's for yourself, for your own blog, but you want to have some place to go type in the content and then you can preview it or see it from your CMS without having to touch your code. And then when you're working on your code, that's a completely separate process. So this is basically the URL that I want to use to access this website. Okay, so what we're going to do is actually go into Agility, and Agility has in its settings this domain configuration, and we're going to just go add a website domain for this. I'm going to call it Vercel. The domain URL is this. I'm going to set it as the preview and the production domain. It's both right now. If we'd probably have another one when I went to mywebsite.com when I actually got the DNS set up, which you can all do that in Vercel. You do all that in Vercel as well. But for now, we're just going to use the URL that they gave us, okay? And again, if you wait till next week to sign up, we're rolling this out. So later next week, by the way, next week is also Next.js Conf, which Vercel is sponsoring and Agility is sponsoring as well, where basically it's like tons of people are coming. So you go ahead, search for that. Next.js Conf is going to be great to learn even more about Next.js. But we're rolling out a pretty big update to help basically set all the settings in Vercel and Agility on this in that single deploy button that we first clicked. So there's a few manual things that we got to do, but it's pretty easy. So now we've got that set up. I've got the preview URL linked in here. I'm actually going to go to the pages section of Agility. So Agility is kind of special that it's a headless CMS, but it actually has page management in it. And we can see we've got a few pages that are right here. And I can click on the home page and I can see that, okay, this page has some settings. Excuse me. And of course, my internet's slow, so that's great. And we got this preview button, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and click this preview button and just see what happens. So what it's going to do is it's going to pop me over. See how it's got this like preview key up here? So what that's going to do is we used that security key in the background to verify that key, and then it kicked me into preview mode. So this is awesome, okay? If you've ever worked with trying to get preview and Jamstack sites, it's usually really hard. This is super easy to get going, and a lot of it is just the technology that Vercel is using in the background. So what they do is they run the site statically, but they also have the ability to run the site through a serverless function, which is what's happening right now to say, okay, it's special, he's got this key, kick them into preview mode and serve the preview content. So now we can go in and make a change to something. So we've got this rich text area at the bottom. Let's go make a change to that and see what we can do. So let's just do, let's make it fun. Save that over there. So I've just added some very simple stuff there. It's going to take a second for that to update, and then I'm just going to refresh this page. And I'm going to refresh it again because, things always take longer when you're in a demo. There you go. And so it automatically shows me the content that was there. So really easy to get preview working. So that's just a kind of a bonus from this kind of setup for using Vercel with a CMS like Agility. But we can also have the idea now. Normally with headless CMSs and Jamstack sites, you have to set up a webhook or some kind of way to say, hey, has content changed? And it would push that and basically trigger a rebuild of the site. Well, Next.js is different. It's got this ability, and you have to set it up. I'll show you where it is in the code in a minute. But basically, it's got this idea of a static regeneration. Okay, and we can actually watch it as it happens. It's really cool. So that happens as a function as well. So we can view function logs, and everything comes through this function called triple.slug. Okay, everything comes through this slug function, which is basically the placeholder for the page. Okay, because the pages are generated dynamically, right, from the content. So as this thing is loaded, I'm going to actually exit preview mode. Okay, so we're in publish mode now, and I don't have my 3. It's not as exciting as a site as it was, a minute ago, because it's no exclamation marks. So we're in there. But what it does is it says, okay, if this page has been hit, then there's the idea to generate it dynamically if the content has been updated. Okay, so you can see it's actually checking in the background, and we can actually see the console log in here, and you can see it's like, hey, is there anything changed in agility yet? No, not yet. And it does, and it has a thing that it's only if the page has been hit, it will check, and you can see how often it is. This is kind of, when I first saw this, I'm like, how is this happening? It's so crazy. But let's go ahead and publish this whole page, which will also publish the content. So this is an agility thing right now, where it's just like, how do you publish content? So pretty straightforward. But what that's going to do is it doesn't push it to the website. It just is now going to be, it's going to take a second because my internet is dying on me. But anyway, so it's published that content in this free package, and that content is now just available for anybody to use it. So just like any other headless CMS, it's just data that's there. But it's Next.js that is basically checking, or Vercel, I should say, checking this Next.js project to say, hey, is there anything going on in here? And keep an eye on it. And you can see in here, well, look, the page sync returned that item that I just published. Okay, so it's checking in the background to see what's happening, and it'll just update that one page that changed. So when I refresh this again, it's there. So you can imagine with a huge site, now it only has to update the pages that have changed, and it does it like underneath while everything else is being served statically. So it's kind of like mind-bending, but it works awesome. So that's one of the things that we select. To me, when you're working with a Jamstack sort of static site generation and CMS, those are the two of the main things that are really hard to get going. And boom, we just showed you how to do it, and it's only a few minutes have gone past. So that's great. So we're at a pretty good spot. We've got everything set up. It's running sort of online, but now I want to work with the code. Okay, so let's actually get started with that. So what this did, I'm going to jump back to Vercel here. Okay, this is my Vercel main sort of thing. So you can see this is my account. This is the project that I'm working on, and this is the actual deployment of that project. So that's how it does it kind of hierarchically. So I'm just going to go back to the homepage of this deployment, and it'll tell me, hey, this is integrated with Git, and this is the Git repo that it is integrated with. So I'm going to just click on that, and it's going to open up my GitHub account. I don't see Express in the picture. Is that because we're using Next.js, as would have needed when we don't need Express? So yeah, we haven't seen any web server yet, because Vercel does all that for us in terms of running all the node things it needs in the background. Okay, I'm going to run this locally as well, and we'll see how that runs locally. Okay, so that's the question there. Hopefully that answers the question. So yeah, you haven't, because everything we've been using free accounts, so a free agility account, a free Vercel account to run this Next.js project. We haven't had to run our own web server to get all this running. It just does it for us. Okay, so we have this Git. So this Git repo was cloned by Vercel for us based on the sort of the source that was this starter package, right? But now I want to run it locally. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to grab the URL from Git, and I'm going to clone it locally. So let's go ahead and do that. So I have my terminal window. Where am I? So I'm going to go git clone. I'm brutal with Git commands, but I think that's one that's good. So git clone, I paste that in, go. So it's going to pull that down and let me run it locally, okay? So now I'm going to open that folder in Visual Studio Code. So here it is, Next.js October 21B. I'm just going to drag that into there. Okay. Hopefully, video quality not so good. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep an eye on these questions as they come through. Okay, I think we're okay. Hopefully you guys are able to see what's going on. I have my code size set to like a pretty big size too, so hopefully that works for everybody. Okay. So I'm in Visual Studio Code. I have the project open here. The first thing I need to do is set my environment variables. So just like when we went to Vercel, before we could deploy everything and get it running, we had to run environment variables. So there's a first thing I always look for is .env file. So this one has a .env, .local, .example. Okay. So I'm just going to rename that one to just env.local. Okay. And you can see we've got preset here. What are the 4 things we need to set up here? So I'm going to go ahead and plug those in real quick. It'll just take me a second. So I'm going to go to the homepage of Agility and click on API keys. I need the GUID. Excuse me, copied. That. I need the, let's show these. I need the live API key, so that's here. And I need the preview key, that's there. And actually, I don't need the security key right now. We can go with just these 3 for now. This would only be if I'm running in preview and I need to, or I'm running in live and I need to switch to preview mode. But when I'm running locally, it'll go development. Okay, so now, of course, the most important thing to do is this is, so Next.js is on top of React, but this is using NPM to handle all the packages. So I just sort of, one of the things with JavaScript and any Jamstack stuff is there's this package.json. All of these things are dependencies, right? So we need to actually pull those dependencies down. So we run npm install. You can also run yarn install, depending on which one you use. Let's use npm for now, just for fun. That's going to take a second. It's going to pull about a gajillion files down and put them in a node modules folder. But while it's doing that, let's take a quick peek around this actual source code. First thing I like to look at is some of the config files. And I can see we've got this tailwind.config. So this project is actually using Tailwind CSS, which is awesome. And there are lots of theme settings that have been set up in here for you. So the idea was this is a starter, but it can be used as a real project as it evolves. Excuse me. And you just need to update some of these settings to whatever you want for them. Okay. Pretty standard Tailwind stuff. So we've got a next.config, which is doing a few things here. So, and this is mostly configuring Webpack for things like SVGs and a couple other things to handle some stuff. Because what it's also using is something called styled components. Okay, so which is actually really hard to get set up sometimes with Next.js, but this project does that for you. So it has Tailwind CSS, styled components, and it uses Tailwind with styled components with a library called Twin, okay? Which seems like a lot, but basically means that your CSS in JavaScript is really, really great in here, okay? So we've got NPM, we did our NPM install, that's awesome. Now, first thing we do is we call NPM run dev, which you can always, by the way, you wanna know like, hey, what commands are available in my package? I just look under scripts and it's got dev, so I know I can run NPM run dev, which is going to run next.dev underneath for me. So I didn't have to install anything except for this stuff. As long as I had React, then I should be good. All right, so now what I'm going to do is jump to my browser. I'm going to go localhost. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to learn how to type again. Localhost 3000. Here we go. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to go pull down the content. Okay, so let's actually just check this here. So we've run the server. It's now going to compile the page. So it's going to compile any JavaScript that needs to work with to run, but it's actually going to run a bunch of Agility CMS stuff. So it's actually going to pull the Agility CMS content down and actually put it in JSON files for me. So it keeps those around, pulls down all the content, and it calls get page props. All right. So it basically runs the site locally in development mode. So every time I refresh a page, it's actually going to go say, hey, is there any new content that I need to grab? And combine all the stuff. And it's also got hot reloading from React. So if you understand React development, Next.js development will be really, really familiar. And you can see that it's got that updated content that I put into Agility, okay? I'm actually gonna show my inspector here. So let's just make this a little bit bigger, okay? And it's gonna have, one thing that Next.js likes to do and React as well is to have all kinds of like warnings and stuff about a few different things. And it's actually, there's one specific warning. It doesn't like the way some of these modules were built. So it didn't like my default exports, but it still works. Just hot reloading isn't as efficient as it could be. Let's take a quick gander through some of this code. Okay. to see what's actually happening. So a Next.js site usually has a bunch of things that are very similar in each site. So one is it's got this pages folder. Okay, so this is where your main React components will be that are running Next.js. Okay, it also has an API folder. So you can actually, when you run this on Vercel, you can actually put serverless functions right in your Next.js project. Okay, and out of the box, we give you one called like hello. So this is the most basic one. It just basically, this is the most basic serverless function there is. You know, hey, we're going to put a status code of 200 in a small JSON object just to show you how you can do this. Okay. But there's also one for preview, one to generate a preview key, and one to exit preview. So these are ones that Agility has put in there for us so that we could get into preview mode. Remember, it had that weird key that showed up when we clicked preview from Agility? Well, that handles all that stuff using serverless functions. Okay. So I'm not going to worry too much about those just right now, but they work. And when you want to add your own functions that do more complex things, that's where you put them in the API folder. It's also got these other 4 documents. Other Next.js projects may have more underneath pages, like a nested list of pages, actual routing from the tree. But what's really cool about Agility is that, I can't even see the code. It looks like there's some problem with Crowdcast. Hopefully this clears up soon. Yeah, it does look a little blurry. I'm going to make my...
Yeah, if you just make the window full screen, I think it would help. It's streaming at 720, which is... but I think if it's full screen, it would make the code a little less blurry.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. What I'm going to do is make my code larger so you guys can see it even more.
Yeah, maybe make the window
font
for
size.
Just maximize it.
All right, let's set this even larger. We're going to set this to be 17 for the editor. Hopefully that'll do it. Okay. All right, so we've got...
And Joel, one last thing, just maximize the window if you can. I think that would help. Yeah, I think that helps. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for sticking with me, everybody. Hopefully we can get this even better. So we've got the pages folder, and there's a bunch of kind of interesting looking things in here. Command plus. Oh, wow. There you go. I can make it even bigger. Okay, guys, thanks. Thanks, Teresa. Appreciate that. All right. Now the font is incredibly large, but hopefully that's more readable for everybody and they can see what's going on. All right. Well, and my video has completely frozen over there. Okay. Trying to watch multiple windows here, and hopefully it's all going to work good. Okay. So we've got one called _app. All this is basically doing is pulling in some Tailwind stuff that we've got in the preview bar. So basically some CSS stuff that it does for Tailwind and some global CSS that we needed. And then we basically got one component that it's going to output. Okay. So this is basically just a placeholder. Then we've got this _document thing. Okay. And again, this is doing some stuff for styled components. So there's a lot of boilerplate stuff that if someone takes care of it for you, then that's awesome, because literally this is just doing boilerplate. It's not doing anything that we need to work with later. Okay. So it's like, hey, once it's set it, you kind of forget it. We've got an index file, which only does one default export. Okay. It says, hey, take my default and my get static props, which we're going to be using. This is important. And we're going to send it to this special slug. Okay. So all of the routing for this whole, every page in this site is going to go through a thing called slug. Okay. Because Agility is going to give us a route tree from our pages that it uses. Okay. So we only need to have one file that everything comes through. And then we'll show how all of the rest of it is mapped to components that we can build. Okay. Because there's lots of components in this project. All right. So this whole thing is this is it. The whole thing that it kind of comes through. So we've got a hook in here to handle preview. So that's important. From the it just basically renders out that preview bar, which we've got right here if we're in preview mode or development mode. And then we've got this layout. So it's using a global layout component that we're using for everything. And we'll get looking at that in a second too. Okay. So it's important in a React project like this, like a Next.js project, to kind of keep the logic separated from the layout a little bit if you can, okay? So anyway, so this layout is all going to be handled somewhere else, but then we've got some logic that happens. And there's two main methods that get called when you're using Next.js as a static website. One is called getStaticProps, which gets called as part of the build process for every single page, every single route in the website, okay? So for the default route, for your about page, for all the blog pages or whatever page you have, it will call this function. And what we're doing is we're just passing it right through into another one called getAgilityPageProps. So what this does is it finds that data from the CMS, basically, okay? And so if you had your own way, and you could combine this with other CMSs or other data as well, so this is where you would do that code yourself. And it just returns those props, and we'll look at what those props actually look like, that get passed into your components, okay? And then there's this cool thing. Revalidate is the number of seconds that we want to refresh this page so this is doing every 1 second, which is pretty aggressive. You could put something like 30 or whatever, but that means that if this is running on Vercel, okay, and there's a way to run it in like a Docker container or locally to test this as well, as you can test it all out, but when it's running on something like Vercel, like we showed, then it has a function that this all gets used to generate it, to generate the static files. That function will run again after a page loads every second. 1 second after that page loads, to kind of check to see if there's new stuff in there, to understand if it needs to run the data again. So this is kind of a magical prop. You don't have to put it in there. You can also generate the whole site on reload if you need to. But if you have the kind of data that works with this, like your Agility CMS data is, that's just awesome. Okay, and then we have another function that says, give me a list of all the paths in the site. Okay, so we have this getStaticPaths. That's what that does. And it basically wants you to return back an array of all the paths that are available in the site. However, remember this idea? Well, so that helps, that revalidates if pages got updated. But what if a page is brand new? So what this does is it uses this fallback equals true. So this is new in Next.js, like 9.5, I think. These two properties working together, because what this does is it says, okay, if I don't find a page, I'm going to basically call getStaticPaths again and try and see if that page has been added through getStaticProps. So it'll say, hey, has a new page been added to this whole thing? And if it has, it'll actually generate the code for that page, the HTML for it. So it's got some fallback stuff to kind of find out if stuff's been updated and added to the site incrementally, which is like typically one of the most difficult problems to sort of solve inside a Jamstack site. So I wanted to show those two things specifically because we haven't even got into any of the beyond the boilerplate code yet, and that basically does all that stuff. Okay, so we're running this site. By the way, this whole thing is like still running, and it's waiting for me to hit a page to do something. But let's look at some of the layout that's in here. Okay, so this layout is components agility global layout. So I can also just go hit F12 and it'll jump me to there, which is nice. Oh, that font is huge. Okay, so you can see some interesting things we're pulling in. We've got a global header and a global footer, which is like a quick peek at, especially because that shows us how to do linking. Okay, because at Next.js, not only does it output static HTML, but it also basically generates this whole thing as a single page application, so that if I use a special link component, when I click around, it doesn't have to reload the whole frame of the website again. Okay, so it uses a next router, and we have a head tag in there for SEO. Okay, so this is taking care of a lot of stuff for us. It can dynamically load components, and it uses this, remember this twin macro thing we talked about? So this is like Tailwind CSS with styled components, which is like mint. So great. Let's just start digging into. So those are the imports. Let's dig into this layout a little bit. So we've got, remember the idea of it could be a fallback. So there could be like a bit of a delay when it's loading a page to see if it's there or not. So we handle that case. We handle 404s. So we just return this error 404. So we could do our own different stuff if you wanted to do your different stuff on a 404 page. Okay. And then we get this idea of we need to basically dynamically generate a page template, okay? And that's an agility thing. We'll get to how that works. So this dynamic is really useful because it says, okay, every page object that comes down is just a JSON object that tells us what component to load to run for this page, okay? So we'll see what that is like in a second. we have this page object that has some SEO as part of it. And we're going to output those SEO pieces inside our head tag. Okay, so the first one is our title. So we've got that from our sitemap node, which comes through as a props. So there's a bunch of things that were then to get static props. Those are coming now into this component as props, right here, these props. So we have a page, sitemap node. It could be dynamic page item if it's a blog post, and whether it's not found. So those are the props that we care about. All right, so we're going to output these in the head. We've also got some extra stuff that we might have added. So we could have an OG image, so like an open graph image prop. So we'll add that if we need to. So this is when it gets shared to social media and stuff like that. And you could add whatever extra head stuff you want that's in here. Okay, we could use a preview bar, and then we've got these sort of pretty semantic looking components. We've got main LM. Let's just look at what main LM actually is. It's actually defined up here. This is the beauty of styled components with things like Twin. So if you're familiar at all with Tailwind CSS, you'll know that that is basically like a CSS declaration within Tailwind. So if we want the P-8, which is basically a padding of level 8 on this component, it just generates that for us. So it generating like styled CSS type components that don't have any logic, but they do have styling with this is really awesome. And I'll show some more of that in a minute. Okay, so really cool stuff there. So this is all gonna be wrapped in like a padding with 8. And then I've taken off the animation because it was annoying. And then we've got basically a thing to render out our page template. And then it's gonna render out all the agility data inside there, okay? So I'll get to that in a second because that's like agility specific stuff. But then we've got these global header and global footer. Okay, so let's look at the global header first because it's a really useful one, okay? So I just navigated inside agility global and the global header component, okay? So this component is going to get some props, but what it does is we've got this get custom initial props, okay? So inside, there's this folder up here, and there's inside agility node, we've basically got some stuff where it's saying, hey, when we call get static props for each page, it gets that, and it actually goes through all the components on that page and calls this method if it's there. Just so we can asynchronously load data as we need to. It's another one of those hard things to do with a static website is to dynamically and asynchronously get in extra data. Okay, so lets us do that. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to basically get our global header content for the language code. This is also a multilingual site if we want it to be. All right, I'm just going to basically return that up to, I'm going to basically get the first item in this list, which is like 1. I'm going to grab my sitemap. Okay, so I'm going to get, there's a global header, basically content item that I had in my CMS. And we also have the ability to get a nested sitemap, okay, from agility. So just remember what agility looked like. It had, when I looked at my pages, this pages on a sitemap. So and this could be like many thousands of pages potentially. That is available basically as a JSON object right here in get sitemap nested. Okay. And then I'm going to go through and just only show the ones that are visible. And I'm going to grab the text from those and return that out. Okay. So that gets called and gets passed to my global header component right up here. Okay. So I've got my global header props. I'm sorry, I got this pop-ups everywhere. Got my sitemap node on my page if I need it, okay? And on here, I basically have the name of the site, my logo, and remember that sitemap? That's really useful. So let's look at that for a second. So we've got these link tags, okay? And I've got a logo link and a few other things. So these are coming from, if I look at link, that's a Next thing, okay? Next uses link tags when you don't want to necessarily navigate away and like reload the whole frame. Okay, so the most basic one is I want to go to the home page. So that's when I click on the logo. So when folks, let me find this here. So when they click on this logo, it takes them to the home page if they were somewhere else. Okay, and basically this is standard React stuff. Hopefully that's familiar. And I've got the name of the site that's here. So this site name is Agility Starter Site 2020. Let's take a quick peek into Agility to find that. So Agility has this pages section. It also has a section called shared content, which basically just gives you all of the content in your site. And here's my global header, okay? And the global header item is really simple. It has a logo, which is this. I've used the telescope. And my site name is Agility Starter Site 2020. And I've got a primary call to action, which is contact us on the Get Started. So you can see that's that piece of content there. Here's my logo. And this is the Get Started, okay? So you can see how those are getting outputted from my code. And then we also have these two things, which are the actual pages on the sitemap that have that are menu visible. Okay, so if I jump to the sitemap for a second, I click on the About page, and then the SEO. Remember that we had the SEO stuff there. We can say whether they're visible or not. Okay, so there's a few things that this is not really that familiar for headless CMSs, but it is kind of unique to Agility. But I love it because it means that we can generate pages and let, as I said before, let the content people worry about the content, which includes pages and where those pages are routed on a sitemap. And that means as a developer, I don't have to predetermine that. And then let me focus only on my code. Okay, so we've got this stuff coming into here. I'm going to output my logo link. And then we've got these nav links, okay, which is an array that we pass in to a header component. So this thing is actually really, really straightforward because I'm using a component library that has basically a header component that was already built. So I'm not only separating, you can see I separate my logic from the front end, but we're separating the parts where we're combining like content from a CMS and we're just passing those props into another component that's all generated for me, okay? So these set of links here are my, these are the global header props. These are the top level links here, okay? And this is a special thing. This is one of the things that is kind of tricky to get figured out. So this is an array. I'm putting it in a nav link, okay? Because this wants to be slightly like some more stuff that's around it based on the styled components. So that's coming from my another component that actually generates this as an export. We'll look at that in a second too. Okay. This is an array of nav links that's inside this thing here, and this also has an array of links inside that. So we could do like nested and nested stuff. But this link component, which is a Next.js component, we set the href to this slug, okay, which makes absolutely no sense. But because everything is running through this, remember in the pages section, this slug, that's what that's referring to, okay? So this is the actual URL of the main component. And then we actually set the path, this link.path, which is like /about or whatever the actual page URL is, in the as property, okay? It doesn't seem to make any sense until you've used it for a little while. Now I could use regular anchor tags, okay? But I don't want to because I want the navigation to be really fast. So when we look at the site in, running in live mode, and I click on these links up here, it doesn't have, it's like it reloads really fast. It doesn't reload the entire page because it treats it like a single page application because I use this link tag here. Okay, so it's important to understand how that works. You could just use an anchor tag like, a href equals whatever to build that. In that case, which is how I think this tag was built, it'll actually, let's actually go to the homepage. I know this one right here does not do that. It actually is going to reload the whole page before it does any work, okay, which is slower. Makes a big difference to your users. All right, let's take a quick peek into this header component, which I didn't build, by the way. We licensed this component from a project called Treact, which you can look up. But you can see we've got these styled components and lots of cool imports that are happening here. And what it does is it actually uses a lot of like these awesome. So it builds a header tag. It puts all these styles on it, these classes from Tailwind, and it just works great. This is the nav links thing. So anyway, so this is kind of mind blowing for a React person. So really, really works well. I didn't invent it. This is a combination of Tailwind, styled components, plus a project called Twin macro. Okay, so this is a great way to build sites that are going to be large sites or have a lot of really complex stuff in them where you don't want to have huge CSS files. CSS becomes a utility with this stuff, okay? Which is one of the reasons why we wanted to get it into a starter package because it takes care of a lot of stuff here, okay? And again, I didn't write all these. But you can see here, it actually has some default ones. So when I was writing this, putting the starter package together the first time, I was able to see how this is going to work, right? And then we get into down below where it actually outputs the rendering for it. And you basically get very semantic rendering for how it all works. So it's really, really nice. Okay. Let's go back. I'm not going to save my changes. Okay, so we've got our global header. That's awesome. Now, if you remember, everything in this layout came through this page template. So every page has a template. And so let's look at agility for a second. So this is the about page. And on the settings for this, it says it's using the main template. Okay, so that main template is defined in the content modeling section. And all it's going to do is say, hey, what zones does this have to put content in? So I go to the content modeling page templates. There's only one. And it has one content zone on it called main content zone. And it's called main template. All right. Yes, that's the Twin Macro project. Certified Fresh Events. Thank you for putting that on there. That's awesome. Ben Rogerson is a great guy. Okay. Where was I? Oh yeah, we're going to find that template. So here we go. Under components, agility page templates, main template. And this is like super basic, right? It's a div. I don't even use this class name, I don't think. And it basically puts this content zone inside of here and passes all the props down to it. So the way this whole thing works is the page is an object, a JavaScript object, JSON, that has all the modules on it that an editor has added to it. Okay, so that's what we get from the CMS that's available at each sort of path. And that gets passed into each content zone that's on there. So this main content zone is being rendered inside main template, okay? So that references back to here, like on my about page. This is a really simple one, main content zone. So as an editor, someone has dropped in a rich text area, which is the most basic we call module, okay? And it is just a piece of content that has one HTML field on there in and about a screen, okay? So let's just see how this is rendered. So we've got agility page templates. So that was super simple. Let's find modules. Let's find the rich text area module, okay? So this is basically using the reference name of that module. Let me jump back one more time. We can actually see the module definition for this rich text area if we click here. And it'll show us that, hey, this has one field on it and it's the reference name is rich text area. Okay, so it uses this to find that module and to render it. And it's going to use some basic stuff from the layouts that were defined in this project. So we have a container with padding, and then looky here, this uses another cool package called Prose, which also blows my mind because it's so awesome. So we're going to dangerously set the inner HTML here of this text blob from the rich text module, and we're going to put it in this rich text component, which is defined right here. So it's a div with these bits of prose. So Tailwind by default removes all CSS from everything. So if, for instance, if this was just a div, let's just make this a div for a second. And just a regular old div. Jump back to this here, wherever it is. I think I'm on my about screen. It's going to take me a second. So not a lot of fun, right? It doesn't have very good typography, right? So by setting this to be a rich text component, I don't even think I need this class name actually. Setting it to here, it's now going to have great typography. Okay, so it's going to follow all the typographic, which is really cool because like this is semantic HTML that was typed in by an editor, but we want it to be working with all of the stuff that's in Tailwind. So this is a really important sort of concept to understand when you're working with CMS, because if you give a CMS editor an HTML field to work with, you want to make sure that they're doing the right thing, okay? Let's find a little more interesting component to work with and actually make a couple tweaks to it, okay? So on the home page, we've got this component called background as image, okay? Let's look at that. So hero background as image is the name of the module, gets rendered right here, right? It's got a bunch of fields that come through, and lo and behold, those fields are going to get mapped directly through into this hero module, okay? And it's really cool because it basically defines what all of the data that it needs in here. And this, if you're familiar with JavaScript, this way of defining objects is really great because it means that you know what the complex object needs to be, right? And we've got a video URL and a bunch of different stuff. So here we go. And I just love this way of working with these different things, right? So we've got the announcement, we've got the title, a subtitle, but let's change this a little bit. So right now, when I run this, it's on the home page. So let's go to the home page. So it's got your best work, starts now. Well, maybe I don't want to have this, kind of looks weird because it's in two different places. So maybe I just want to do title and subtitle right beside each other. Go ahead, comment those out, save it, let the hot reloading take over, see what it looks like. Best work starts now. I don't love it. This is a lot of what working with React is. Change some code, tweak it a little bit, see what you like, tweak it back to what you want. Let's try this slanted background. Maybe it'll look better in there. I like that, okay? It's cool. This is what I want. So I've made a code change, right? And your code change could be anything. You could implement all kinds of new stuff. I could build new modules, all these different things. But now I've got a code change that I actually want to get hosted up in Vercel. Oh, how's a good question. How's Markdown support? So Markdown is basically just another text type. So what you would do there, Agility doesn't have a default Markdown field yet. It's coming. But the one I normally do Markdown is you can build a custom field in Agility that it basically pulls in a Markdown editor. And then in your module, all you have to do is basically get I think there's a React Markdown package that you can pull in to take that Markdown text, convert it to HTML, put it inside the prose or a rich text thing, because now it's been converted and it should work for you. So there's a couple of steps to get that Markdown rendered to HTML, but it works really well. So it's really just one of those things. If React can do it, then this thing can do it as well. Okay. All right, moving forward. And happy reach out in the Slack channel if you want to later on to talk about more Markdown stuff, because it's one of the things that our team is talking about quite a bit. Some people are really like, hey, we need to have more Markdown in CMS, and other people are like, no, we don't want any Markdown in CMS. We want more templated content. So it totally depends on you and your project. I know for my own personal blog, I use Agility with a Markdown field, so I love it. So anyway, okay, so we have this changes, and I can see here we've got some changes that need to be uploaded. Okay, so we've got our rich text area, which I guess I made a change to. Yeah, I took it the class name, and I've got this here. Okay, so I want to make a slight change up here. So I'm going to go through, and I'm going to give it a terrible comment. I'm going to check this into source control. I'm going to sync it. Okay, I'm going to push that change up. Okay, so now let's go take a look at Vercel to see what happens as a reaction to that. Okay, so automatically it's going to start building my update that's called tweaks. Okay, so when you do change code and push it into the main branch, it will basically cause a redeploy in Vercel. Okay, so Vercel is listening to changes on there. Okay, and now it's going to build this site, pull in the published content, and change it around. While that's happening, because we can actually watch that happen. If I click on it, we can actually see this happening in the background, doing a bunch of work. And I'm going to read a couple comments here. Currently learning React and Express from a coding bootcamp. I thought companies always need Express or something else in the background. Okay, so that's a great question. So Express is just basically a generic web server, which Vercel is running some kind of web server as part of Next.js. But you don't need to have a Node.js. Oh, Thomas is answering for me. Thanks, Thomas. But that's basically true. So Next.js basically runs the web server for us inside Vercel runs the web server for us for a Next.js project. It does all that for you. And when you're running it locally down here, it's again giving you a local web server to run this as. All right. So by the way, this build is done. You can see it even updated the preview image for it here. Let's visit it and see that, yes, my code change came through. Pretty simple code change, but I think it demonstrates how that all works. Okay. So we're getting there. I think that was all the stuff that I wanted to show out of the box. So pretty simple, pretty amazing sort of starter package. Go ahead, sign up on that online. So just as a review of where to sort of go to get started again, so you don't have to go back to the whole video, joeycms.com, click on try for free. And that'll get you started on the whole process. And then you can come through the video, and within an hour, you should be able to get it all sort of at the same spot that I was at. And what's really cool, just jump back into the code one more time. I have all kinds of components here that are available to me. Okay, so if you look at all these hero components, let's look at another one that's like a 2-column with input. Okay, let's look at that one for a second. So say I wanted to put that, to build that in my CMS as what I'm trying to say, as a module. Okay, so you can see that this is the actual content for that. And so all I really needed to do is basically make these pieces of text, all these labels. I just basically create a module that does all this for me. Okay, so what I would do is, and this is getting into a little bit more learning, and I'm happy to help folks learn through here. But in the content modeling section of Agility, basically create something called a module. Okay, and you can see where these ones are already here. Add another one, and basically start adding fields to it. Okay, so I might call this one hero with input. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'll just show you like a couple seconds of how to add a field to a module, and you can see how it would go through. So I'm going to click on add a field and say this one might be the heading, okay, that we want to use. So I call this one heading. It's a text field and probably needs to be required, right? So I can set that there. So really quickly, I can go boom, 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 add all my fields to this. And then what I would do is create a component in Agility modules called hero with input, right? And I would actually start with this one as an example of how to do it. And it's going to basically see this fields property that's here. That's going to get passed in with whatever fields are defined on that module, okay? And then it's just a matter of your users. Now I've basically given my users like this Lego block that they can use all over the place, right? So here we go, hero with input, add it to a page. So this is now, say, hey, I wanted to have a hero on my about page for whatever reason. Do that, and I've set my heading to be whatever I want. This is awesome. And once it gets implemented in the code, now that would actually output, I need to drag it above here. So you can see the power of modules, because I basically have created a component that is now usable from content that my content editors have control over, right? So it's super, super powerful. And the cool thing is too, that once all this content is in place, if there's another version of Next.js, or you want to take that content and use it somewhere else, it's just JSON objects. You can use it anywhere you want. So it's super useful in Next.js, and by all means go in Next.js. But what about when the next thing comes along? Maybe there's another version of Next.js, or maybe you don't want to use Tailwind, you want to use some other CSS component, or you want to use it in a React Native app. You can use that content there too and pull it in. It's just content over an API. So I think the combination of like great frameworks like Next.js on top of Vercel as a great hosting platform, alongside headless CMS like Agility to give you the data, is a super, super powerful tool for developers to sort of get going and working forward. So really excited about this as a set of piece of technology that you guys can use, and really excited to see sort of what you guys come out with it. So I'm going to, one more time, actually going to paste, because I don't want to lose track of you folks. I need to go to, so on the events page, by the way, we have more events coming up, as well as more certified fresh events as well. But if you go to the bottom of the events page, the Slack link is right here. I'm going to copy it as well, because I think this is one of the best ways that we've been able to keep track, or keep connected. Well, I already sent that message. It doesn't let me send it twice. Darn. Let me send it again now. To keep connected with developers, because this was just scratching the surface and getting started. Of course, it is like a pretty good starter. It gives you a lot of code to get going with, but then there are a lot of questions that come out of that, and we want to help answer those questions and help people get further along with Next.js. One of the main questions I know that we've had is, well, what if I don't want to host it in Vercel? So first of all, I really love Vercel. Try and host it in Vercel if you can. But if your company is like, we have to use our Azure spend for everything, there are ways to host Next.js sites outside of Vercel and get some of the similar benefits that are already in there, like preview and incremental rebuild. It's just a little tricky to get set up and it's a little more work, but you can do it. So happy to have that conversation with you folks as well.
Thanks for watching.